How do I? All right, thanks, Jane. So some announcements. First, we're going to be opening board applications estimated to be Friday of week 10, and then we're going to make them due the end of week 1 in spring quarter. And then interviews are going to take place weeks 2 and 3, right? And for spring meeting time, we're going to set it to be, again, Tuesdays, 5 to 6 p.m. So I guess make a note in your schedules and try to plan your activities and classes around this meeting time. All right, that's it for announcements.
So, hi everyone. You might have noticed that this club has an innovation team, and you've been wondering, what's going on over there every Sunday afternoon? Well, today we're going to give you guys an update on what happened for the winter quarter.
Okay, so fall quarter, we worked a lot on just understanding the patent in general. And so for our goal for winter quarter, we wanted to turn the patent ideas into a feasible prototype idea before we are able to actually start building like a physical model of the device.
So you might be wondering, what is this eye stop shaking device that has been so lauded in the hand innovation team? Well, the form of such of the device is as a glove or a neck brace or as an anklet bracelet. So basically something that goes in a joint on the body, which can be subject to tremors. The purpose of the eye stop shaking device is a non-invasive method of reducing tremors, Parkinson's disease, PD, or essential tremor, ET, patients using gyroscopes and accelerometers. So this isn't something that is supposed to reduce the underlying causes for such tremors, but rather is a therapy in which to aid with reducing the impact of such tremors when someone's doing fine motor movements. And the ideals for this eye stop shaking device is for it to be accessible, cost and population wise, as opposed to more invasive treatments, more dangerous treatments, more costly treatments. It's long term, meaning something that an individual can use throughout their time, because something like Parkinson's disease and essential tremor are chronic. It doesn't go away very easily. It's something that needs to last, and it's ease of use. These are individuals who have trouble using fine motor movements. We don't want them to have trouble putting on the device that's supposed to help them reduce such struggles. So that is very important to us.
Yeah, so here we just thought we would include some of the images of the different forms of the eye stop shaking device that's outlined in the patent. And so you can see here on the left, this is like theoretically what the ankle bracelet might look like. This is the glove, and then this would be the neck brace. And so for our purposes for innovation team, we are only first focusing on the glove. And so this quarter, we really worked on trying to think of a good prototype for the glove portion of eye stop shaking.
So here's a little run through. First, we'll be telling you guys a little bit about how project proposals were being made. We'll be talking about some of the patent workshops like patent mechanics, materials, and user interface. And we will also be highlighting some member project proposals. We had those in the past 3 weeks. And so we would like to show those to the entire club and some funding updates to cap off this meeting.
Yeah, so initially we talked about, I think this was the first week of winter quarter, basically what a project proposal is and how members would go about creating this. And so a project proposal is basically you just imagine you're pitching your eye stop shaking device to certain investors or partner organizations that you're interested in getting them on board with your idea. And so when you're pitching this device, you're talking basically about why your device would be needed, the different competitors out there that also maybe address how to reduce tremors, but then showcasing how your device beats those competitors and how it's better. And then just in general, like why this device is needed. And so a big portion of the project proposal would be just talking and fully explaining how your device would work and how it would reduce tremors.
So first, there were some components in terms of a project proposal. The first thing you'd want to talk about is the background. And some of the questions you might ask, like, what are the other solutions on the market? Like Jane said, we want to compare our product as opposed to products that are already on the market. And what's the biology behind essential tremor and Parkinson's disease? If you have a great understanding of that, then it becomes a lot easier to characterize tremors and be able to mitigate them. The second aspect is the device itself. What does the eye stop shaking device do? I mean, I said gyroscopes, accelerometers, those are just names. What does it do? And that will be very important. Along with why is the eye stop shaking device effective? So not only what it does, but how it's able to do it better than, say, a competitor. And finally, deliverables. What should we do in the next couple of weeks, couple of months, and what will we create in the spring? These are basically some goals that we may have before we actually get to a product. Like, we know the end goal. We want to make this product. We want to partner with organizations in order to sell it to them. But how do we get there, and what steps we want to be able to take before that?
So we kind of held 3 different workshops before having members create project proposals, and our goal for these workshops were to try and help them, or to try and supplement their understanding of the patent and give them some ideas and give them time to discuss different prototype ideas. And so the first workshop we held was about patent mechanics. So this is really going into the nitty-gritty about the engineering concepts in the patent.
So the engineering aspect of the patent, we work with Lee Felsenstein, Felsenstein, I think it's Felsenstein, but yeah, Felsenstein, who was actually involved, as I think we discussed earlier, was involved in the creation of the first computer in terms of an LED screen in order to show what a computer shows, just like the one that a lot of us likely are on right now. So it's very, we're very grateful to him to be able to, for him to give us advice on this. And what he said was that gyroscopes by themselves aren't strong enough to counteract all the tremors in the hand because they're too small. So the way in which something like a gyroscope works is that it spins, it's a disc spinning on an axis that creates a torque um, uh, and it creates an angular momentum perpendicular to such torque. As a result of that angular momentum, that momentum will be put in a direction that counteracts whatever motion caused by the tremor in order to be able to stabilize such a motion. And unfortunately, gyroscopes by themselves can counteract large motions, which have a lot of mass, a high acceleration, because because the amount of angular momentum produced won't be enough to counteract such a force. So therefore, we need to be able to pair gyroscopes along with other ideas, something that we had a lot of fun with in the innovation team coming up with. And in the way in which these two work together is to be able to counteract such information gotten from the accelerometers, which determine what tremor exists in the first place and how gyroscopes and whatever other proposal that our members had, how those are counteracted.
So the second workshop we held was about patent materials, and so we discussed the different materials that would be. I'm so sorry, that was a glitch. That would be necessary for electronic plastic housing in general, just because we will have batteries and other electronics that will go on the glove, and so we need to make sure that they're insulated in such a way that, like, exposure to sunlight and just daily tasks that patients would do, they would be protected. And so we also talked about different types of materials that would feel comfortable on the patient's skin while also being sturdy enough to support the gyroscopes and the accelerometers that lay on tracks on the patient's fingers. And so we covered such materials such as nylon or graphene and different types of plastic.
The third presentation that we had was about the user interface. And so basically some components we discussed included how the patient communicates with the connected app, especially because we have to be considerate of the fact that the type of thing we're treating it affects fine motor movements. It's a tremor. And so as a result, something like touching an application on a screen may be extremely difficult for someone with such an affliction. So we were looking at methods like voice commands that can be used in order to manage through the app. The app itself displays tremor activity, heart rate data, and other health data. And trends can be used by physicians if such a device would be partnered with hospitals or with physical therapy organizations that the individual goes to in order to receive such a treatment. These trends can be analyzed by physicians in order to create a sort of personalized setting for the individual with such such tremors. And the patients themselves can also input info. That was something we talked about, how if a patient thought that the glove was being too intrusive, they could reduce the amount of impact from the glove, or if it wasn't doing enough, they could increase such an impact. That's something that could also be very useful. And so on the left, we have the sort of diagram that explains that each of the components has sort of a 1/5 like contribution in order to represent the user interface, from backend to informational components, voice AI, input controls, and navigational components.
So after these workshops, we went on to do the member project proposals, which was very fun. And so members would basically create a device idea. So after learning more about the patent through these workshops and discussing with other members, each member spent time researching different methods of reducing tremors to supplement how the gyroscopes would work. And so then they got ready to give their pitch to us. And so I think over the span of 3 weeks, each member did around a 10-minute project proposal, and they got feedback on them, and they were all really great. And so our final prototype idea will basically comprise some of their ideas and just kind of be an accumulation of what they've come up with.
So we're going to go in the next part here of the presentation, going through some of the member proposals. Hopefully some of you can see your own proposals on these slides. We just wanted to highlight components of each of the proposals. And so there was an overall usage basically describing the iStop shaking device. These are some of the slides that we had concerning basically everything from the iStop shaking device itself to how the technology works towards solutions that can be complementing the gyroscopes and the iStop shaking device.
And then a lot of members touched upon design in their presentation. So basically how they envisioned the different components of the glove and how that would come together. And so here, like you can see, some people talked about how there would be gyroscopes, some of the different materials, and then the accelerometers. And so this was just in general, like how the layout of the glove kind of looked.
Of course, along with design is the materials in which to implement such a design. Materials are an underrated component of such a prototype. We generally don't think about it when we think about designing or creating it, but it's extremely important because it's necessary to consider such materials in order to see in order to reach some of our goals in terms of durability, but then also low cost. So some of the different types of fibers, synthetic fibers, or different qualities of sensors needed, those were all components that were being described.
And then mechanisms, so this is a main part of the project proposal. So this is highlighting exactly how their idea would work and how it would reduce tremors. And so we had several tune mass dampers, electrodes, this tremolo add-on feature, and we'll cover these in the highlights later. But just in general, this was really where the members honed in on kind of the more, the engineering concept behind their device would work.
And finally, some of the goals. We wanted to make sure that our members knew sort of the values of the project, and so a lot of like improving access to such treatment, making sure to keep it low cost, and knowing exactly what we need to do and the steps we need to take in order to reach the final goal of being able to create being able to create a prototype and being able to partner with organizations. These were some important steps that sometimes take a backseat to sort of the glamorous part of creating a design. We want to make sure that project proposals also had a component of reliability in terms of how such a device would be created and what market it would be targeting.
So now we'll go into some exciting highlights of our members' project proposals. So we'll just briefly give a rundown of all the different types of ideas that our members came up with. So Sasha and Alana did non-Newtonian fluids. And so this is just a type of fluid whose viscosity is not constant. It changes under force to become kind of like more liquid or less liquid. And so this would kind of respond to the differing tremor forces that a patient is experiencing. So yeah, these are their beautiful slides. It's very nice.
And then another aspect that some members took, Daniel and Shruti took, were about tuned mass dampeners. So basically, a vibrating mass that counteracts such a motion on a larger scale. So instead of having something like a gyroscope that has an angular momentum going in a different direction, we physically have a weight that swings in the opposite direction of such a tremor in order to counteract such a motion inside a controlled environment. And so their slides are seen here, and some pretty great diagrams in order to explain the processes very well.
And then we had pneumatic tubes by Crystal and magnetorheological fluids highlight by Giorgio. And so pneumatic tubes, basically the way that she envisioned it would be these tubes would kind of go up along the arm. And so this would serve as a stronger stabilizer compared to the smaller gyroscopes on the hands. And they basically compress air to do kind of push and pull movements to counteract antagonistic muscles that are creating these tremors. And then Giorgio's idea was this type of fluid that changes viscosity in the presence of applying a magnetic field to stabilize wrist tremors. And so these were really interesting and innovative ideas.
And then we also had some of our members do talk about electrodes. So basically, nerve stimulation in order to reduce sorts of tremors at a local site. So Anna and Justin talked about these. Basically, electrodes that stimulate antagonistic muscle nerves. So muscle nerves that pair, because each muscle contraction has its own extension and vice versa. We want to be able to stimulate the antagonistic muscles in order to reduce wherever muscles are being stimulated in order to create such tremors, in order to be able to counteract such tremor creation.
And then we had this really interesting music therapy add-on by Austin, terms tremolo. And so this would basically give patients rhythmic pulse beats to listen to, and this helps with walking. And so he demonstrated previous studies that showed how music therapy can help Parkinson's patients with their tremors and their movement. And then Sai showed this cooling idea in which there would be a fluid that is like when you turn it on, it cools. And so this would be inserted in 6 storage compartments throughout the glove. And so cooling has been shown to reduce tremor activity for up to 2 hours. And so these cooling compartments would turn on for various times throughout the day and hopefully dampen some of the tremors.
And also we had some user interface highlights. So Alex, we thought really represented in terms of how the interface, but then also how the data could be relayed between the user and the device and the iStop shaking device itself. We thought that his sort of like creation or like presentation of how that would work was very good. So we wanted to highlight that as well.
All right, and some funding updates. I believe this is the first time innovation team is also hearing of this, if I'm correct. But some funding updates. So back in December, the leadership team and I applied to the UCLA Health Innovation MedTech Challenge, and we were selected as one of the winners in the digital health category. And they gave us $1,000 for seed funding. And more recently, we were able to apply into UCLA's, I guess, organization funding, and we received $3,900. And all of these will go towards prototype materials into spring quarter. And yeah, hopefully this is a good start to our prototype creation.
So we have a potential spring quarter plus fall quarter timeline. And so after we present the final prototype to the team next, I think this coming Sunday, we are going to start making the physical prototype as a team next quarter. And so first we're going to be doing some 3D modeling using CAD software, and we will also be focusing on UI design. And then hopefully, if members are interested and we have time, we can start in-person building maybe over the summer, and then for sure in the fall if things are good and we're able to go back to school in person. And then as always, throughout this entire process, we're going to be continually applying to different grants and different funding opportunities so that we have the funds necessary to buy these different materials.
All right, and hopefully this was a really good overview of what IT has done this winter quarter. And we're going to be having I guess, general application. So it's going to be open to the public. But you guys would definitely be given preference going in and applying into IT as well. So look forward to that, and definitely reach out to any of the current members and directors if you have any questions as to what we're doing or things that we're looking for the application. All right, anything else to add? Shripad and Jane, you guys did a good job. All right, virtual applause. Woo! Thanks, guys. And thank you everyone on the innovation team for your hard work and your efforts. It's going to be really exciting going to spring quarter, and we hope to see you guys